Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Caithness Amateur Dram Antic Society tasting. And tonight I'm going to continue with our series of videos looking at the comparison between the Diageo's Distillers Edition to the core range bottling. And tonight I'm going to go over to the first of two Islay tastings. And we're going to start off. First video is Caol Ila, where we compare the Caol Ila 12-year-old 43% with the Caol Ila Distillers Edition 43%. Caol Ila was built in 1846 and is the largest of the distilleries scattered across the Isle of Islay in the west of Scotland. And it sits on an isolated corner of the island, facing the Isle of Jura, and Caol Ila means Sound of Islay in Gaelic and was named after the distillery's proximity to Jura. The road that leads to Caol Ila passes by a row of small houses and curves down towards the sea, allowing a spectacular view of the Sound of Islay. And for years it's been the road that the management and distillery workers travelled, perhaps due in part to its isolated location. The workers at Caol Ila have made commitment to the distillery a family affair. The current manager, Billy Stitchell, has worked there all his life, as did his father, grandfather, and great grandfather. Their unbroken bloodline is proof that traditions still matter. And it's a remarkable distillery that can boast almost completely consistent production since its opening, having only closed briefly during the Second World War due to the regulations placed on the use of barley. It has changed hands multiple times during the 19th and early 20th centuries, with each new owner contributing to the expansion and development of the distillery. In 1972, the entire distillery was demolished and rebuilt to be able to function at a higher capacity. And that expansion included advancing from 2 stills to 6 stills to meet the new high level of demand. And as has been the case ever since the distillery opened its doors, the pure spring water used in Caol Ila rises from limestone in nearby Loch Namban and falls towards the sea by the distillery. It's owned by Diageo and has been one of the company's volume distilleries since the 1990s, meaning that it produces a high quantity of whisky. Their current production levels are impressive. It produces over 3 million litres of alcohol per year. The still room at Caol Ila is renowned for its incredible view over the Sound of Islay. The 6 wash stills stand majestically with a capacity of 19,000 litres, with the spirit stills at 12,000 litres. Opposite a glass wall through which it's possible to see seals playing in the Sound. Although they were newly constructed in the early 70s, they're exact replicas of the ones in the old distillery. Both the wash and spirit stills have similar shapes, with large onion bases, no waist, and long lithe arms stretching downwards. Since 1974, it's been sourcing their malted barley from Port Ellen, and it's peat smoked on the other side of the island at the same site that produces the malt for Diageo'S. Some experts note a distinct difference in the taste of Caol Ila before and after the distillery started to use the Port Ellen maltings, observing that the newer whisky is lighter and cleaner than its predecessor. There's still a 3-storey warehouse where much of the older whisky is kept, but its most Caol Ila whisky is sent to the inland in tanker trucks and aged and bottled in a Glaswegian warehouse. Most of the single malts that come from Caol Ila are aged in bourbon casks, some also in sherry wood. And it can handle extra years in the cask and ages extremely well. It's one of the lighter Islay whiskies, lighter in colour than its powerful neighbours, uh, but with a distinctive floral and peppery note, which complements the traditional Islay peat flavour. It became, in 1986, part of the United Distillers conglomerate, leading to the first semi-official bottling range in 1989, Flora and Fauna. The official bottlings have not always been frequently released from Caol Ila. They're easier to source. In addition to the official bottlings, independent bottlings have been well received by the whisky community. The 1993 12-year-old bottled by Wilson and Morgan received the silver medal at the Malt Maniacs Awards in 2005. And other independent bottlers have included Gordon and MacPhail, Signatory Vintage, and Alchemist. In addition to its prestige as a single malt, it's also been used heavily as an ingredient in Johnnie Walker and Black Bottle blends. The new make has a fragrant and smoky nose with juniper and wet grass, cod liver oil and wet kilt. It smells slightly malty with a seashore freshness, and the palate is dry smoke, then an explosion of oil and pine, and it's hot. The finish is grassy and smoky. So we're going to start tonight with the Caol Ila 12-year-old, which has been chill filtered and coloured with maturation in ex-bourbon hogsheads. I'm going to pour my other one, which I'll explain the second whiskey in just due course. I'm going to pour it as well at the same time. This one has the Distillers Edition has a Muscatel cash finish, and you can see the difference in colour. This is the 12-year-old, and this is the Distillers Edition. You can see the 12-year-old is lighter in colour. This is slightly more darker. So 43% ABV, bourbon casks, and it has thin beating and fairly mild viscosity there too. And it starts nicely with delicate smoked ham and citrus notes. I think lemon is one of the great hallmarks of Caol Ila. And you get hints of cigar leaves. It's fresh with smoke. Smoke and herbs with lemon peel. It's fresh with peppermint and grassy notes, with bonfire and a bit of tobacco. It's got an ozone freshness, smoked ham and a little touch of seaweed. It's very clean and lightly smoky with some sweetness behind, angelica and seashore fresh. Try the mouth. And it's oily and tongue coating. Get pears and juniper, almost full, oily with tar and delicate smoke, sweet honey, and it's a bit peppery, sweet and fruity. And it's quite exotic with sophisticated smoke, tar with juicy and watery melon, very malty. I like it that way. And it dries towards finish, although the smoke is a constant thread adding fragrance and a drying, balancing element. It's gently smoked. It's a nice length. Peppery notes are strong again, and that sophisticated smoke gets much stronger on the finish. Nice, oily, and a bit fruity. And lemon peel hits very late in the aftertaste. It's a bit dry and peaty. I'll try 10 drops of water to this. And now the peat smoke has a medium strength, ashy, briny, maybe a bit earthy. There's a charcoal note and seaweed with some salt. And just a hint of inky iodine. And then there's a lighter side with grass and soft white pepper and a lot of sweet cream. And lemon brings a touch of fruit, soft, mouldy lemon. And then there's a couple of delicate accent scents, elderflower and a grilled seafood. And with water, it's got a medium thin mouthfeel, but there's a decent amount of savoury umami flavours here. Peppery barbecue, a decent amount of smoke. It's less than some other Islay whiskies, of course, and the salt and soft oak notes come next. Then it transitions to lighter flavours, vanilla and cream, some guava and lemon and lime fizzy soda. And the finish is a medium length. And the peat grows softer and more subtle. Lemon lime soda continues from the palate, but there's a nice mix of wax, butter, lemons, and honey. And in the background, a soft mineral side mingles with some wood char. So, Caol Ila, 12-year-old, nice peated whiskey, an okayed ram from Islay, smoke in a smooth and delicate way. And it's a subtle and sweet side of Islay. It's a great smoky whiskey for beginners. But maybe you should start with the heavy smokers, like Ardbeg 10 or Lagavulin 16, when you're in the beginning of your whiskey adventures. And then move on to Caol Ila and the gentle smoky drams. I'm not sure you can call Caol Ila gentle, but it's softer than Ardbeg, especially when you compare it to an Ardbeg 10. So I'm going to cleanse my palate, and I'm still munching away through the Shore Scottish Seed Company lightly salted seaweed crisps from Wick, which pair really well with maritime and smoky whiskies. So Now we're going to move on to the Caol Ila Distillers Edition at 43%. I have a bottle of this, and I'm glad I do because whilst the Distillers Edition used to be a plus or minus 12-year-old expression, Caol Ila effectively opened the door to making it younger by giving it a non-age statement. They do continue to use Moscatel seasoned cask finishing for their Distillers Edition, but I'm happy I've got this one because this was actually distilled in 1998, bottled in 2011, has a batch code of CSI 7471, and is definitely 12 years old. And you get a sort of green bottle, which I like green bottles, and so, no, I poured some of this already, sorry. Nice packaging. It's clear with the picture of the distillery. You can't really see it, it's a sort of embossed box. Picture of the distillery, the sound of Islay, and some notes here about the Distillers Edition. And yeah, it's nice packaging. So let's see what we get here. 43%, chill filtered and coloured. And the classic browny notes and coastal peat are now mixed with apricots and sweet lemons. And you get some seaweed and damp ashes. And you get hints of dough and hay as well. It's fresh, it's clean, but it's also a bit light and maybe, if I say so, a little bony. Ashy, fresh, citrus, cold peat. Fresh apple and citrus leads away. It's quite a tight and sharp profile. There's some licorice, fruitiness. But then the sweet wine-like aromas take over from the peat. And the peat almost disappears completely. Right, we'll try this one now. And this is much rounder than classic Caol Ila, with caramel and lemon candy and pears and hints of sweet oak. And then that turns to ashes and smoke with peppery notes. Some bread crust and milk chocolate towards the end. And there's a salty tingle too. I'm reminded of fresh goat cheese, which is a novelty for me in tasting whiskey. Apples, slight salinity, chalky, coastal with hints of lime and slightly medicinal. But it's also a bit thin. And that sweet influence from the cask is present in the background. And the finish is rather short and sweet. Hint of vanilla and lingering smoke. Still a bit farmy and gravelly at the same time. It's not your average Caol Ila finish. But there are some maritime influences there: oyster, flint, gravel. And I think the sweetness becomes a little annoying. And it feels a bit like you're drinking apple juice rather than proper scotch. Fortunately, some peat and medicinal hints return in time. I'll try 10 drops of water in this. And you do get waves of coastal peat, damp ashes, and subtle hints of dry apricot, bonfire, and red berries, smoky bacon, and barbecue. But I'll be honest, I prefer the maritime, salty, Islay peaty smoke on the Caol Ila 10, sorry, Caol Ila 12, rather than the Distillers Edition. And the full flavour smoke has a sweeter edge, tending more towards barbecue smoke, with some pepper and cinnamon alongside. Charred oak, ash, red berries, and a sort of sandy beach. I think I still prefer the 12 rather than the Distillers Edition. And the finish is nice and smoky ash and charred oak. It seems to me that the Distillers Edition has become a gentle introduction to the core range in the case of Caol Ila. You could sip this in a bar whilst not paying too much attention. But there's so much excellent Caol Ila in the market that this comes out as a rather unremarkable expression. I prefer the untampered Caol Ila 12 over this one. And the good things that are in this can be found in other Caol Ilas. And I don't think the Muscatel cask harmonises well with the distillate, in my opinion. Some people may enjoy it, but it's not really my cup of tea. I think Caol Ila 12 is a classic malt in its own right. If you like or dislike Islay peated whiskey, it's so different from the others that I consider it to be a must try. And I think the Distillers Edition with the Muscatel finish is unnecessary, in my opinion. Thanks for listening.